All right, so I think I'm going to start with the bottle, and I'm going to put a neck and a rim on the top and clean it up a little bit. So just a little time check on this assignment. We have today to work on it, and then next week we really won't have too much time to work on it. You are going to be bringing these sculptures to school. You're going to bring them to school with all of your tools, and we'll outline, and we're going to probably spend some class time on Friday really talking about what you should be bringing to school if you're coming for hybrid, and making sure you do bring those things, because we're not going to be sharing any tools or any clay or anything on campus. In the classroom, for safety, we're going to all be working with our own tools, and I honestly don't have more tools to give you. We basically passed out everything we purchased this year to you. So that means you have to come to school with your supplies or you won't have anything to work with, okay? So that means you're bringing your sculpture and the rest of your wet clay and your tools and your art supplies. You're bringing everything to campus with you the first day, and then I will give you a place to store it here. And then you'll only be coming to school one day a week to work on that sculpture or whatever we're working on, and then when you are at home, you're going to be doing online stuff. So when you're at school, I'm not going to be asking you to use your computers or work on anything online. You're only going to be working on your art project. So we're going to kind of divide the time like that. We'll talk a little bit more about this on Friday and make sure you have an understanding of what you're bringing. Okay, so now we have our bottle form. In last class we put this nice big shoulder on top and we smoothed it out and we let it dry a little bit, so when we put something up here it's not going to collapse. So I think we're ready to put that neck on there. Now your pieces are probably a little smaller than mine because you only have so much clay. So keep in mind when you're building up your sculpture the amount of clay that you have left. Try not to use it all before you're finished with your piece. And if you're not quite sure how to gauge that, you can always ask me or talk to me about that. Show me how much clay you have left and ask me questions. So the neck and the rim are pretty easy. It's just a matter of rolling out a little slab and then making a little coil for the rim. So now I have to decide, well, what do I want my neck to look like? You can go back to your original drawing and you can decide what it's going to look like. I'm going to sort of do a little sketch with a tool on the top of here to figure out where am I putting my neck, where am I going to attach it so it's nice and symmetrical. I'm going to look at the front here and make sure I've got it in the middle. Doesn't have to be in the middle. If your design puts it somewhere else, that's totally fine. It's your bottle. You get to decide. I'm not cutting into this. I'm just like sketching on top of it so I can see where to put it. Excited for you guys to be back in the classroom for lots of reasons. But I won't ever have to worry about my lights turning off on me again because you guys are going to be in here moving around. The sensor thinks no one's in here and it shuts the lights off. Okay, I'm going to roll out a very thick slab and I'm going to kind of cut it out in the shape of a rectangle, and I'm going to use it to kind of pinch a neck. I'm making a neck right now. Paddle that flat. I'm going to take it to the edge. You can do this with the rolling pin or you can do it with whatever paddle form you have. Paddle is a really important tool to have and use for this project. Everybody should be paddling their sculpture. Everybody should, let me say that 3 times. Everybody should be paddling their sculpture. Everybody should be paddling their sculpture. I know you don't have this at home, but I'm sure you can find a wooden spoon. Okay, it's a very important tool for this. You haven't.
Could we use a book for a paddle?
Yeah, your book might get ruined though. Are you worried? I don't want you to ruin a book.
It's a book that I don't really read that much. Is that okay?
Yeah, I think anything hard that will push your clay can be a paddle. So that's really up to you. All right, so I've scored my slab here. It's like a thick coil, and I've scored the top of my bottle. I'm not going to cut into it yet. I like that trapped air. It helps me paddle. And then I'm just going to attach it like this. And I'm going to fold it a little bit like that, and then turn it and fold it again, and turn it and then fold it one more time. And then I'm going to have to score these two ends together. Pinch. Now this is really thick, but it's because I want the neck to be kind of tall, so I'm going to pinch it up. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is take my finger, and on the inside I'm going to seal that seam. I'm going to close it off. This is called the neck of my bottle. Okay, and then I'm going to do my cross hatch attach technique where I sweep in one direction. I'm probably going to be doing a lot of scraping and forming of this once I get it attached. And then I cross hatch attach on the on the other side here. Okay, and once I get that, then I can do a little paddle. And this is where a tiny spoon paddle is handy when you have a curve in a smaller space. It'd be harder to get into that space with this bigger paddle, so I'm going to use my spoon instead. So if you have not tried paddling yet, try it today. Go run around your kitchen and find a spoon. It doesn't have to be wood, it could be plastic, although wood would probably be better if you have a choice, because it's not going to stick as much as the plastic will. Okay, so now that I've got that, I've got this kind of weird coil attached to the top. I'm going to pinch it up because first of all it's too thick, right? None of your clay should be this thick. And I want to make it taller and a little bit more neck-like. And then I can start to kind of flare it out because I want the top of the neck to kind of flare out so that I can put a rim there and then make a lid. I'm going to teach you how to make a lid with a flange and kind of like a cork, like a clay cork, so that your lid doesn't slide off your piece. This one looks a lot different than the other bottle I'm making for the other class. This neck is really big compared to the other one. I'll show you the other one so you can kind of get a sense of the difference. So I've pinched it up and I've kind of flared it out, so it's very elegant looking. I might pinch the neck in a little bit. This is just stage one of working with clay. Forming it while it's wet is stage one, right? Doesn't mean it's done. We have a lot more stages. We have to let it dry and carve on it and wipe it and clean it up and texturize it. All those stages are important. Okay, so now I'm going to take my scraper tool and I'm going to clean up this neck a little bit. So I'm going to put my hand on the inside and I'm going to scrape down. I don't need all that clay, it's still kind of thick. And this will make that line very smooth. So I'm going to put it sideways so you guys can see better what I'm doing here. Scrape down. And I've got extra clay on my scraper. I can just pull it off. Okay, so I've scraped down and now I have a semblance of a neck. can even curve this rim up a bit. This rim is really uneven, so I'm probably going to be spending some time cleaning that up, cutting it off so it's a little bit more even. But for now, I think that looks pretty good. So the best way to do that is maybe take some measurements here. So the smallest length here is 1.5 inches. So I'm going to measure this all the way around and mark it at 1.5 inches so that I can cut this off in an even way. Okay, I'm just gonna, you could take like a butter knife to do this, or anything that's got an edge to it. Go slow for this part so you don't cut off too much. Okay, so now it's a little bit more even. And I'm going to be adding another rim to this once this dries a bit. It's a little too floppy for me to be adding another rim to it. For now, I think that's good. I might want to make the lid right now too, just because I'm here. So the way that I'm going to make the lid, I'm going to make a little pinch pot, like a little bowl that's going to sit on top. So I'm going to grab about a handful of clay, wedge it up, make sure it's all in one piece, and then rolling it on the table a little bit, kind of compressing it. Roll it in your hands. Try to get rid of any cracks. Jocelyn, and I see in your chat you're asking me if you're bringing everything question mark, and the answer is yes. Everything that I gave you as an art supply in that bag, including your clay from both semesters, you're bringing with you. Your pencils, your paper, your anything I gave you, you're bringing. And I would also like you to bring your artwork in too, because right now we're going through and we're making selections for our big middle school retrospective exhibition that happens at the end of the school year. And you guys are part of that. So we want to have some physical pieces to hang in the gallery, as well as some digital stuff. So I'd like you to bring in everything. What I would do is I'd just get a backpack, and I would put all your art and everything that you've done and made for this class. Bring it with you. Now, I'm not gonna take those things. If I do borrow it from you for the gallery, I will give it back to you once the gallery is taken down. Okay, so don't worry about that. I'm not taking your art from you. But we do want to display it. Okay, so now I'm gonna make a pinch pot, and I'm gonna use it as my lid. So I've got a ball of clay, and I'm going to stick my thumb down in the middle of it, not too far. There's about 1 inch of clay left, the thickness, once I poke my thumb down in. And I'm going to go around, and at the very top, I'm going to pinch and turn, pinch and turn, pinch and turn, trying to make the wall an even thickness. And then I'm going to move my fingers down a little bit and pinch and turn, trying to make a little cap, a little lid here. And then I can start to sort of see if it fits. Looks like it needs to be a little, maybe a little bit more oval shaped. So I can pinch it into that oval shape. Now I'll probably be cleaning this up and refining it, and maybe even adding some detail and texture to it later. But for now, I'm just trying to make it fit this. I might even have a little like knob up here, but it's not going to be too delicate because I don't want it to break when I send my bottle off into the world. Okay, so maybe a little bit bigger. Okay. When you make a lid to something in ceramics, you have to let it dry with the body of what you're making it for, because it has to kind of shrink to fit it. If I tried to dry this lid separately from the body, it's going to warp in a different way and it's not going to fit back on your piece. So keep that in mind. When you put this back together and you wrap this all up, keep the lid where it needs to go. Okay, so now that I have this basic cup shape, I need to make something that goes inside the bottle so that it doesn't slide right off when I turn the bottle. I'm calling that a cork or a flange. Now your lid doesn't need to be round like this. You can make it square. You can do anything you want to do. I notice a lot of you are making geometric shape capsules. So we're going to have to talk about how to make a lid for that. It's going to be a little challenging because a big slab is hard to make in ceramics because slabs tend to want to warp. So if you're making something geometric, you might want to consider making a round top, not a straight cross top. Part of the reason I didn't show you the slab technique is that it's a little bit more advanced, and you guys, for a lot of you, this is your first time even working with clay. So slab work is a little bit more complicated. So I think I'm going to make the cork part. So that means I have to cut this away. And I'm going to try to speed up a little bit so that I can work on the capsule too. Don't let this fall in. Try to pull it out. Do I have someone trying to ask a question? I hear somebody's mic. And I'm just going to clean this up a little bit with my finger. Somebody is not muted. I can hear your clay work. Okay, so now that I have an opening and I've got my lid, I need to make a flange that goes on the inside. So I'm going to actually use this clay that I just cut off. Let me take a peek here. Oh, I think it's Skylar. You're not muted. There you go. Okay, so for the flange, because this lid is a little different than the other lid, I need to think about it for a second. I think I'm going to roll out kind of a thick coil and attach it like a wall here, and it's going to be pointing down. I think that's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to pinch it a little skinnier while it's in my hands. cut this off, cut this off. So some of you haven't never been on our campus, right? It might be the first time. That's exciting. We're going to show you guys when you get here how to move through the campus and where to line up and give you the tour so you can find your way around. You're going to do that in your advisory classes next week. Okay, so I just attached that coil kind of into a little ring shape here. Seal my seam. Now I'm going to sort of shape it. It has to fit into this space.
Miss Greninger?
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see this, but would this be okay with this coil, or is it too big?
Let me pin you because you're about half an inch big right now. No, that's okay. It's probably a good idea, Ovia. I know you're trying to make your coils perfect, but I would roll a really fat coil and attach it and then pinch it up while it's on the pot. It doesn't need to be perfect before you attach it, okay?
Okay.
All right, so this is called the flange. We can also call it a cork, and it needs to fit inside this. It needs to slide into this opening.
Miss Granger?
Yes.
What happens is that my piece is really wet because I added too much water to it. So I'm letting it dry a little bit so it's easier for me to mold.
Okay, so how are you adding water to your piece? How does it keep ending up too wet?
I think I put too much water because when I was outside doing it, like I think it was the weekend because I needed to practice like getting more comfortable with clay. So when I was doing that, I think I added too much water because it still has water left over.
So it's still too wet?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, just leave it uncovered and let it sit out. Putting it in the sun might help, but don't forget about it because it will totally dry out.
Is this a good size snack?
Hang on a sec. You guys, I have kind of clay hands right now, so it's really hard for me to touch the computer. It's not good for the computer.
Oh, never mind then.
So give me a little time to finish up my demo, and then I can help you with other stuff. Okay, so I'm putting this flange on the inside of my lid. Now I've made it kind of an oval shape so it fits in here. So now this is a little bit more delicate, and you might need to use a tool. So you could try to use your loop tool for this, or you could try to stick your finger down in there, or you could get like a butter knife from the kitchen, or a little spoon, or just maybe you have a baby brother or sister and there's little baby spoons in your kitchen. Stuff like that make really good clay tools. Like this looks like a little baby spoon right here. So I'm going to scrape that seam closed. If I don't do this step, then this is going to fall off. After this dries, this will totally fall off if I don't attach it well. So clay is kind of deceptive that way. It seems like it's all stuck together, but it's mostly stuck together because of the water. And when the water evaporates, guess what? Your piece will just fall apart unless you attach it really well. Which is why I talk so much about scoring and closing seams and stuff. Okay, so for now, I'm gonna let this kind of be because it's really wet. And when clay is this wet, you can't really do much else with it other than form it. So I've made it to fit. I'm probably gonna put a more interesting rim on here later. It's got its flange or its cork that fits inside. And for now, I'm gonna probably cover the bottom up because I might do some carving on here. So I don't want this part to dry out. You never want to dry out your piece completely. Don't ever let it get drier than leather hard, which is what this is down here. But I do want this part to kind of catch up to this part. So maybe for like 20 minutes or so, I'm gonna just take the bottom and wrap it in plastic and leave the top open. Okay, so now I'm going to switch gears and move on to my capsule. I'm going to do this pretty quick because I want to have at least 10-15 minutes to help you guys today. All right, so we've closed the form and we've decided where we're going to cut the lid off. So today's goal is to cut the lid off and make a flange. So here is my vessel. I've texturized it with my paddle. I've created a visual marking as to where I want to cut the lid. So that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to go around with a sharp tool. You guys could use a butter knife. And I'm just going to, I think at an angle, like a bevel, an angle like this. I don't want to cut it straight in. I'm going to kind of turn my blade this way. Very carefully and slowly, I'm going to just drag my tool along that line that I already drew.
Miss Greninger?
Mm-hmm.
It's not a question that you need to see the computer for, but so like I put on my first coil and I scored and slipped the bottom, like the base and the first coil, but like there's these two ends. Do I just like squash them together, or do you want me to score and slip them as well?
You always score and slip when you attach two pieces together. Always.
Okay.
No matter what you're doing. All right,
Okay.
so I've cut this lid and now I'm about to lift it off. Now we have to be careful when we lift this off that we don't warp it, because it won't fit back on there if we warp it. So I'm going to just kind of like tease it off carefully, and you can see that I cut a bevel, so it's at an angle here. Now you'll notice when you take your lid off that the underside looks really bad, because when we closed it off we couldn't put our finger on the inside to smooth it out. So this is your opportunity. You can do it with your finger. I would maybe recommend doing it with your finger first and then taking a tool, your loop tool, and like making it a little thinner, because this is really thick right now. When you're doing this, put it in your hand like this. So when you're pushing on it, you're not bending your lid way out so it doesn't fit back on here. This is the part that's going to be a little challenging for you guys. I'm going to go grab a loop tool. Okay, so I'm going to push this aside so that I don't put a bunch of crumbles in there. And this is my loop tool. I'm going to just go through and try to scrape some of this excess clay out and maybe even up the inside, because we're going to see the inside of this. This is different than the bottle, so it has to be nice looking. Not too thin though, not too thin. Just about 1/4 of an inch.
Miss Greninger?
Mm-hmm.
So like I scored and slipped the base, but like when I was attaching the corners, it like just came off. The base and the first coil just like came off. Do you want me to score it again?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think you should be making your coils like slab like that. I think you should be making them like I showed you with the fat coil. Yeah, but when you showed me that, it looked very thin and like you rolled it out and cut it off.
Oh no, it was really big.
Mm-hmm. So why do you think, are you doing the cross attach after you put it on there?
I was going to, but then it just came off all of it.
How did it come off? That's the part I don't understand.
I was attaching the two loose ends, and then like I was like pinching up, and then it just came off.
Okay, well, if it comes off, then you have to attach it again.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you got to maybe compress a little bit more, push a little harder, and really, really push on the clay to close your seams. All right, then I'm going to take my scraper tool and kind of go around here and even up your walls a bit. Maybe go around this little edge and kind of like smooth it out a bit. Okay, so now my inside of my lid is looking good. And I'm gonna try to put it back and make sure I didn't warp it too much. It's kind of like a little pumpkin. You have to maybe create something distinguishing so you can line it up again in the right spot. Like a little notch that you'd put in your pumpkin. The flange is probably going to act like that. Or you could put a little rim around the top of your pot to hide the seam. I could show you how to do that. Alright, so now we have to make a flange for the inside of this. And remember, the flange is kind of like your cork, it holds the lid on. You guys want to do your best to try to copy what I'm doing in terms of the technique I'm showing you, because there are reasons why I'm showing you to this a certain way, because I have 20 years experience working with clay, and I've been teaching it to students your age for a very long time, and I kind of know the pitfalls. I know the things that could happen if you build things certain ways or put too much water on things or make things too thin. I've seen it all, okay? So there's a reason why I'm teaching you a certain way. It's because I want you to be successful. Okay, so we're gonna make this coil kind of thinner. And we're still gonna do a little pinching, but for the most part I want it to be kind of what it is when I attach it. Roll it out a little bit. You can always go back. I recommend if you're working on the weekend or you're trying to get caught up, maybe go back and watch my demo. Might be helpful to you. All right, so I'm going to put the flange right here. Score it. A little bit of water. Now I never ever dump water on my piece, ever, because it will collapse. Clay cannot handle that much water. If I put water on my piece, it's a wrung out sponge, a little tiny bit where I'm attaching two scored areas. That's it. So if you find that you're using water to smooth out your surfaces and you're squeezing it all over the place and it's getting all slimy, your piece is going to collapse. So try not to do that. I know it's tempting when you're first working with clay to think that you need to put a bunch of water on it. I have seen that many times, but I'm here to tell you it's not necessary and can harm your piece. Okay, so I'm putting the flange on. Right now I'm just kind of lining it up. I'll attach it a little bit better in a minute. And then Ovia, you were asking me about this. What do you do when you have a seam and you're trying to attach? Yes, you do have to score and slip. The answer to that question is always yes. Remember, because you can't, if you stick two pieces of clay together without doing this, that water is the only thing that's making them stick, and that water will disappear. Okay, so it's not really attached yet, it's just placed. So now I'm going to take a little, I might even go in and do a little pinching, but not too much because I don't want to warp my lid. Just enough to kind of compress it on there. And then I'm going to take a tool. You guys can use a butter knife or a baby spoon. And I'm really going to attach. Go around, smooth it out. And then we'll maybe go around and scrape out that texture. I'm going to do the same on the inside. I don't really want to mess up my lid too much. I'm pushing on it right now. So I'm going to hold it as like a cup. I'm going to use my finger to attach. You never want to trap air. If you find you've attached something and there could possibly be a little air pocket in between what you're attaching and what you just made, then you want to try to either pop it or smooth it or get rid of that air pocket, because it will explode. That air, trapped air, needs to escape, and it will escape right out of your piece through the wall of your piece. Okay, so now I have this flange just a little too thick, but it's there, and now I'm going to try to pinch it a little thinner and kind of angle it in so that it doesn't get caught on the wall of my capsule.
Miss Grinninger,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you can see me, but would this work as a paddle? It's like a rice thing.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. And I went to get this, so I couldn't see the way you put it flange. You just rolled a coil and then made it fit inside your cap.
Yep, I just attached it kind of like I would attach the other coils. Same technique.
Okay, so score and slip.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then I kind of pinched it up, sort of at an angle, so you can kind of see from the side that it's coming in. And then I maybe want to spend a little time cleaning up this cut area. Could even take a tool and just cut off that extra little fringe area. You don't want to lose this bevel though, because your lid sits nicely on it. And then maybe clean up this other piece. I can't say it more times. This is only stage 1 of working with clay. This is the stage 1 forming, where your clay is really wet and sticky and malleable. We wouldn't do any detail work right now. We wouldn't do any carving. We wouldn't do any drawing into it. The only thing we could do on the surface a little bit is texture. This is a good time for texture because the clay is so impressionable. Okay, so I've cleaned that up. I'm going to make sure that my lid is a little bit cleaner looking and make sure it still fits. My lid is so similar.
By the way, Miss Granger,
Uh-huh.
do we do the hello activity?
Oh yeah, we didn't even do that today, did we? We just jumped right into making.
Yeah.
We'll say that for the end. I'll have you guys clean up a little early and we'll do that at the end. Thank you for reminding me.
Okay.
Okay, so the lid is back on there, and now I have my flange in there so it won't slide off. Okay, so this is really important. Okay, so if you're at this stage and you're here and you're ready and you want to wrap it up, right? You absolutely have to do this step or your lid will never come off your piece. It will completely get stuck. Take your lid off. Get a paper towel. Get it a little bit wet but not too damp. Squeeze it out so it's not soaking. And then you want to lay it on the rim. And the reason for this is that if you don't put a barrier between your lid and your body, it's going to stick. It's going to suction itself on there together, and it's probably never going to come off. So make that paper towel pretty thin because you still want your lid to fit tight. That's why I got it a little bit wet so it would kind of conform. And this barrier, this tiny little paper barrier, is going to prevent your lid from sticking, but it will help your piece, your lid, to dry with your body. So this is the tricky part. You have to make sure it's lined up and actually in the right spot. and then you would, we're not letting it dry out yet because I'm going to show you a little bit more carving techniques here, and we might add maybe a little handle to the top or little handles or something. I could even maybe do a little paddle just to make sure that fits nicely on there. Okay, so this is almost done. I'm going to let it get leather hard and do a little bit more carving and texture on it, maybe put a little handle, and then this is done. This is done for now. And then the next stage would be firing, and then you guys would glaze it at school, and that part's really fun. All right, so I'm going to put this aside, wrap it up, and wash my hands, come back, and actually take a few pictures of these so you can see them, and then I will help you.
Miss Greninger? Miss Greninger? Miss Greninger?
I can hear you, but I was washing my hands. What's up?
Oh, sorry. So like, how much of an inch should the like coil be after I pinched it?
1/4 of an inch.
Okay.
So 1/4 of an inch. I don't really want to take this off again to take the picture, but I'll maybe just pull it up so you can kind of see. Actually, I do need to lift it off so you guys can see what the flange looks like. Okay. Does anyone need any assistance?